Hey guys, tonight I'm going to tell you a true crime story, gently, the kind that curls around your thoughts long after the lights go out. You can almost hear the hum of the streetlights outside, see the faint reflection of rain on the pavement. Somewhere, a clock ticks too loud, a dog barks once, then silence. So before you get too cozy, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, tell me where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. Now, turn off the lights, let the fan hum for a little white noise, and let's begin tonight's journey together. You step out of your car, gravel crunching beneath your shoes. It's late past midnight and the air feels heavy, damp with the scent of pine and something else, something metallic. You've been here before, this small town on the edge of the Appalachian foothills, where every face used to be familiar and every secret felt shared, but not anymore. You follow the faint glow of porch lights scattered down Maple Avenue, each one flickering like a heartbeat. That's where it began 13 years ago, in the summer of 2012. A girl named Lydia Kane, 17, vanished on her way home from her evening shift at the diner. No body, no witnesses, no closure. Just a trail of muddy footprints and the echo of a scream that no one could quite agree on hearing. You remember the flyers. Lydia's face, grainy and smiling, taped to gas pumps and grocery store windows. The sheriff back then said it was probably a runaway case, that girls her age get restless. But you knew Lydia. Everyone did. She loved this place too much to run. The night she disappeared, the town froze in time. The train still passed through once a day, but the sound of it felt different, lonely, even haunted. People stopped leaving their windows open. Kids were told not to ride their bikes past sundown. Now, more than a decade later, the headlines scream again. Arrest made in cold case that haunted community. But arrests don't always bring peace. Sometimes they open wounds that never healed. You make your way toward the diner, now abandoned and boarded up. The old sign still hangs there. Letters faded. Kane's Corner Cafe, best pie in the county. The K tilts slightly, like a head bowed in grief. Through the broken window, moonlight spills across the counter where Lydia used to pour coffee. A gust of wind rattles the tin awning. You pull your jacket tighter and step closer. The floorboards creak, soft, like a whisper. It smells of dust and old sugar, but beneath that, something faintly sour, like rainwater trapped too long. You run your hand along the counter and feel the grooves where someone once carved initials, L plus D. No one ever figured out who the D was. That's the first truth tonight. Sometimes, the smallest details refuse to fade. When the police reopened the case last spring, they found new evidence. A locket unearthed behind the diner during a construction dig. Inside, a photo of Lydia and another of someone no one recognized. The locket's chain was broken, rusted, as if torn off in a struggle. Rumors spread faster than wildfire. Some said it belonged to her secret boyfriend, a drifter who used to bust tables. Others whispered it was her father's, that he'd been more controlling than he let on. Theories piled up like the dead leaves along the road, each one catching a bit of wind before scattering again. As you stand there, you hear the faint hum of a power line overhead. The night feels too still. In this town, silence isn't peace, it's memory breathing. You cross to the edge of the parking lot where the weeds grow tall. That's where they say her car was found. Driver's door open, keys still in the ignition, purse untouched. An odd detail in the official report caught your eye once. A single red ribbon tied neatly to the antenna. No one could explain it. Local historians like to point out that this region has always been a place of disappearances. During the Great Depression, entire families vanished overnight, leaving behind meals still warm on the stove. Some say it's the mountains themselves swallowing what they can't bear to see. Others blame the river, winding and deceptive, where fog hides every sin. You close your eyes and listen to the crickets, the whisper of distant thunder. Somewhere far off, a siren wails, a sound you've learned to interpret as both warning and confession. And just when you think you're alone, a porch light flicks on down the street. You're not sure why, but you feel like it's watching you. The town of Ashgrove has been waiting 13 years for the truth. Tonight, it might finally arrive. You follow the sidewalk, past the empty diner, and toward the courthouse, where the night gathers like a shawl over brick and limestone. You can still smell fry oil from somewhere, maybe a late-night food truck a few blocks over, and the sweetness of honeysuckle climbing a rusted fence. Your shoes scuff the chalk outline of hopscotch someone drew earlier that day. It feels out of place. A child's game paused in the exact middle of a town-wide breath, held a little too long. Everyone knows what happened this afternoon. The text threads went frantic. The group chats flared, and every front porch talk got loud. The sheriff's department, after months of quiet retesting and paperwork, finally made an arrest. The name they said out loud belonged to a person you've always known, Mr. Colton Price, the high school woodshop teacher. Soft-spoken, good at fixing things, forever offering to sand down wobbly stair rails for free. He coached junior varsity baseball when the real coach had the flu. He built the nativity stable for the holiday parade, a weatherproof miracle that survived 3 winters. And now he's being walked in handcuffs under the fluorescent buzz of the station canopy, his face pale, eyes picking a spot on the ground like he could carve a door there and slip through. You weren't there when the cuffs clicked, but you can picture it, because this town repeats images until they feel carved into you. The hush, the sudden angry whisper, the throat-clearing silence as church mothers clutch their purses tighter. A car door slams. The sound ricochets down maple and cedar. There's an ache you didn't know you were saving for this exact second. You pause in front of the courthouse steps. The doors are locked now, of course. But the night security light glows a tender gold on the brass handle. To your right, the war memorial stands with its eagle wings outstretched. You notice, as you always do, that the eagle's left talon is missing. People say it snapped off during an ice storm in the late 1970 seconds, and no one ever fixed it. Children call it the broken handshake. Superstitious teenagers touch the pedestal for luck before exams. The detail feels suddenly relevant, and you don't know why. Across the street, the station buzzes, shoulders pressed to glass, faces lit blue by phones, the hum of a soda machine blending with the click of a distant printer. You step closer, and the door swishes open. Cold air smells like toner and coffee. A deputy, cheeks wind-chapped, nods to you. Everyone's too tired to enforce boundaries tonight. You drift past the corkboard of community notices, lost dogs, yard sales, one poster for a lecture at the library about the science of memory, and you stop before the hallway that leads to interview rooms. You won't go down there. You don't need to. You already know what the walls look like. Gray. Practical. Sound muffled. You imagine the clock ticking too loudly. You imagine Mr. Price staring at the table's wood grain like it's the only honest thing left in the world. The story they're telling, the one that made the arrest possible, goes like this. The locket found behind the diner held a smudge of degraded DNA. The lab couldn't make sense of it years ago. But new methods, more sensitive, better at pulling whispers from the static, finally sang back a tune. They say it pushed investigators to look again at old items in the evidence locker. Lydia's apron, a coffee cup she touched during her last shift, a textured sweater that everyone remembers because she loved it even on warm nights. All those years, fibers and traces, weighted in airtight bags. The chain of custody held, surprisingly clean for a small department. And then there's the ribbon, that neat red bow looped around her car's antenna. Back then, it felt like a cruel flourish. Now, it's a breadcrumb. Someone noticed embroidery thread in a box of woodshop supplies during a school cleanup. Not normal until you remember the winter craft fair where Mr. Price sold birdhouses with tiny stitched banners that read, "Nest, Sweet Nest." The thread's color on an old spool carnation didn't match exactly, but a photograph of his table from 2011 shows a tie-off that looks eerily like that neat little bow, the kind of knot you learn when your hands are used to coaxing edges together. You lean on the cool tile wall, and your reflection in the glass door looks tired. You think about how a place can teach you to see patterns where there are none, and miss them where they scream. That library lecture poster comes back to you, the one about the science of memory. The subtitle said, "Reconstruction, not replay." That's the open argument that always makes this kind of story more complicated. Experts keep debating how reliable eyewitness memories are, whether we retrieve them like files or rebuild them like sculptures every single time. Some studies say suggestion can reshape details. Others say certain flashbulb memories stay vivid and trustworthy. In cases like this, everyone's certainty hardens into a different shape, and it becomes hard to tell the difference between clarity and confidence. A deputy wheels past a cart of foam cups and a coffee urn that always smells burnt after 10 p.m. You pour some anyway. It tastes like pennies and late-night decisions. Across the room, a detective you recognize from church squares his shoulders and opens a file. Photographs slide into the light. You look away. PG-13. You tell yourself, eyes on the floor tiles, following their pattern like a simple maze. Outside, thunder murmurs again. Rain finally starts. Light at first, then steadier. It streaks the windows. You step back into the night, letting the door breathe shut behind you, and the station's fluorescent hum becomes a softer ghost against the rain's hush. You walk, hands in your pockets, the sound of your feet mixing with the trickle down the curb. Each street lamp throws a cone of light, and in each, a tiny ecosystem. Moths, mist, a spider biding its time under the metal lip. You turn onto Birch Lane because you remember something you were told earlier. Mrs. Hargreave, who used to run the library like an orchestra conductor, claimed she saw Lydia the week before she vanished, talking to a man by the bus stop near Birch and 7th. She said the man wore a hat like a park ranger and carried a paper bag that dripped from the bottom. People made fun of that detail, calling it too cinematic. But here's the strange part. The bags at Harlan's grocery leaked if you put cold milk and hot deli soup together. Steam condensed, seams separated. In a town this small, even the physics of a paper bag becomes a fingerprint. A porch creaks. A wind chime rattles. You pass a ceramic goose dressed in a tiny raincoat made for it by the owner, same shade of carnation as that ribbon. You notice a cat watches you from stoop height. Eyes the exact green of 2 a.m. You stop where the bus stop used to be. The bench is gone now, replaced by a city-sponsored exercise station that only toddlers use as a climbing frame. But the cracked rectangle of concrete remains. A stage where ghosts perform. A street sign leans. The rain gathers and releases in a rhythm your chest begins to mirror. An old man in a flannel robe opens his door, surprised to find another soul out here. He asks if you're all right, and you answer honestly, you're not sure. He nods like that's all he needed to hear and tells you what he remembers. The summer of 2012 felt oddly cool, and you could smell the river more than usual. The county fair had a night where the Ferris wheel stalled half a turn, and riders stared at the sky until the operator cranked it by hand. That same week, someone left a stack of vintage postcards on the library. Steps no return address, all blank, all pictures of bridges. The old man says it like a recipe he used to make. Water, flour, mystery. A historical truth hums beneath his words, gentle and steady. He reminds you almost proudly that the first use of DNA profiling in a criminal case happened in the mid-1980s in England, when genetic fingerprints helped both convict a killer and exonerate an innocent suspect. That's not Ashgrove, not even America, but it's part of the map leading here. You feel the past placing a palm against the present, passing along a baton of method and patience. For a moment, you believe in the math of it, that a pattern can resolve if you look long enough with the right light. You thank the man and move on. Passing the school now, the woodshop windows are dark. You can almost smell cedar and varnish through the wet air, an aroma that conjures a catalog of unfinished futures. Birdhouses, nameplates, desks with initials tapped in gently at the corner. You remember Mr. Price's hands, neatly trimmed nails, a nick on his thumb he covered with electrical tape, the habit of lifting a piece toward the light, turning it slowly to find hidden grain. He taught students to respect the line, to cut wide and sand to truth. You shiver and can't tell if it's the rain. In the margins of every story is a footnote no one reads at first. This one is Mrs. Kane, Lydia's mother, who left for Florida 2 years after the disappearance because the winters grew too long and the mail too thin. She sent back postcards that smelled like sunscreen peacocks from a roadside zoo, sunsets like melted creamsicle, and each had the same sign-off: love, always. People wondered if she meant more than love, if the letter M hid something else. When the news of the arrest reached her today, the rumor is she didn't cry. She just closed the blinds, fed her birds, and called the sheriff to ask one question. Are you sure? You admire the economy of it. At the far edge of town, the river mutters in its sleep. You go there without deciding. Drawn by the particular way, water at night seems to hold secrets more softly than daytime ever could. You stand on the footbridge and listen to boots of rain on tin rooftops downstream. A single heron stands like a punctuation mark on a half-drowned log. Somewhere, a splash, maybe fish, maybe a branch tipping. You tuck your chin inside your collar, and the world reduces to the shine of streetlight on current, the soft hush of drops. What makes an arrest shock a community isn't only the act itself, it's the rearrangement of memory, the sudden need to repack your story of who's good and who's not into new boxes that don't quite fit. Ashgrove has always traded in certainty the way other towns trade in crops. Now, certainty's on back order. They'll try to special order a new batch in the morning coffee shop, debates, pew-to-pew whispers, furious grocery aisle theories, but tonight, you feel the town still, imagining the same timeline from a dozen angles, trying to nudge puzzle pieces that look alike but won't click. You think of a weird aside that people forgot. Lydia had a habit of collecting hotel keycards from relatives' trips, even when they didn't work anymore. She liked the clean design, the way each looked important but wasn't. She used them as bookmarks. After she vanished, her mother found a stack in a shoebox. Florida, Ohio, one from a convention center in Nashville. One card, smudged, had Room 217, written in ballpoint. The innkeeper from our one local motel said their rooms never go above 15. So where did 217 come from? The answer could be nothing. Somebody else's pen, somebody else's note. But then again, what if it wasn't nothing? Your phone buzzes. A news alert recycles what you already know, but adds that the sheriff's office will hold a press conference tomorrow at noon. They'll present the facts as they can, which you know translates to, "We'll say as much as the prosecutor lets us." In the comments section, strangers argue about whether old cases should be left alone if they hurt too many people, as if pain obeys time zones. You put your phone away and let the river speak instead. Far upstream, lightning scribbles without thunder. The air smells briefly ionized, like loose change and rain-damp wires. You imagine, in a room not far from here, Mr. Price picking a spot on the wall between two pushpin holes and letting his gaze rest there. You imagine a detective asking a question he has asked in a dozen ways already. You imagine silence reshaping itself, this time as waiting, then later as answer, or maybe as more silence. Here's the part you circle and underline. The arrest is not the same as the truth. You hold that sentence like a smooth stone in your pocket. It has weight. It is also not enough to anchor you. You think of that open academic debate one more time, the one about memory. If recollection is reconstruction, then a community's recollection is a town hall full of hands sketching in the air at once. Is there a way to build a model that holds every line without collapsing? The experts don't agree. They quarrel politely over coffee, publish papers that resist final punctuation. You respect them for that restraint. Back on Maple, a dog shakes itself under a porch, tags jangling like a tiny tambourine. Rain slackens. The world looks rinsed. Streets darker, but edges crisper. You pass an antique store with a wooden carousel horse in the window. Its paint is chipped exactly where a child's hands would grip. Someone, long ago, stuck a sticker on its saddle, a little gold star. Somehow, it stayed. That's the odd detail you can't shake, how some delicate things hang on, while bigger, stronger, louder things fall away. You think about the locket, the ribbon, the thread, the knot. A cruiser rolls by, slow, its interior light ghosting across your jacket. The officer nods. You nod back. Two people awake in a town learning a new language for grief, and relief, and shock, and the possibility of something like closure. Not closure itself, just the shape of it, sketched in pencil, ready for the eraser if needed. By the time you reach home, the fan in your bedroom will hum the way it always does, and the curtain will lift and settle with the night breath of a window cracked an inch. But you're not there yet. You stop at the churchyard where candles gutter under glass jars. A circle of them surrounds a laminated photo of Lydia, the same one from the flyers, now sun-faded to a softer blue at the edges. Someone has brought gardenias. Their scent cuts through the damp like a memory you forgot you were allowed to keep. And because you promised yourself to tell this gently, you let your voice fall softer inside your mind. You picture Lydia walking home, the sidewalk damp but not yet shining. A ribbon tied to a car antenna like a quiet dare. A town that mutated overnight into 1,000 listeners. You picture a teacher who repairs broken chair legs and teaches kids to measure twice. You picture rooms where certainty is both a tool and a weapon. And you set them down carefully, one on each side of the scale. The way Mr. Price would set a board before the blade. Deliberate, slow, murmuring to the grain, as if it could hear. You are not the judge, not the jury, not the lab tech, not the reporter. You are the late-night walker who keeps the town company just long enough to hear it change keys. You keep going until your shoes are polka-dotted with rain and your hair smells like the river, and you realize the thing everyone else is realizing too. An arrest shocks a community because it reminds everyone that the truth, when it approaches, is both a compass and a storm. Tomorrow, at noon, there will be microphones on stands and cameras on tripods, and you will stand just far enough back to watch faces, not screens. You will notice the way one reporter taps her pen cap against her knuckle when she's nervous. You will hear the sheriff's voice crack once, the tiniest hairline fracture that most won't catch. You will count the seconds between answers and wonder if silence is its own data. And when someone asks if this means the case is solved, the sheriff will clear his throat and say a sentence you're already writing in your head. This is a step. In Ashgrove, steps matter. Some lead home. Some lead deeper into the woods. Either way, you're moving. For now, you walk back to the courthouse square. The rain a hush. The streetlights soft as lullabies. You pass the memorial again and glance at the eagle's missing talon. The broken handshake. Maybe that's what justice feels like in real time. Not a perfect grasp, but contact, all the same. An imperfect hold that still transfers warmth. You breathe in, slow. Somewhere, a clock starts its steady count toward noon. You listen, and listen again, and then you keep walking, because the night has one more mile in it, and someone needs to carry it to dawn. Morning comes quietly in Ashgrove. The kind of dawn that doesn't so much arrive as seep silver first, then pale gold, washing the wet streets and cracked sidewalks in a color somewhere between forgiveness and fatigue. You haven't really slept. The hum of your fan became the soundtrack to replayed questions, words rearranging themselves, sentences tightening and loosening again. By the time you step outside, the air is cool, heavy with that strange peace that only follows a storm. You pass Mrs. Callahan sweeping her porch, the bristles whispering against the damp wood. She looks up and says, "They're setting up the press over at the courthouse," as if she's talking about weather instead of justice. You walk there, coffee in hand, steam curling like thin ghosts. The courthouse lawn, still spongy from rain, hosts an awkward choreography of camera tripods, tangled cords, and reporters rehearsing into microphones. A small crowd gathers, faces old and new, all drawn toward the same gravity. You stand near the back, under the shade of a maple that's half green, half rust, as if undecided which season to belong to. The sheriff steps forward. His uniform looks crisp, but his eyes don't. He speaks in the slow cadence of someone who knows every syllable will be analyzed later. He says words like justice, closure, ongoing investigation. You can feel the crowd leaning toward him, trying to catch meaning between commas. Then, the detail that hushes everyone. They found something else. A wooden charm, small enough to fit in a pocket, carved with Lydia's initials. It wasn't discovered behind the diner or near the car, but at the old mill site, 5 miles out, along the river bend where the water runs quieter. The sheriff says the charm was buried in silt, wrapped in fabric that matched the lining of a tool apron from the school workshop. A ripple of sound moves through the crowd, soft gasps, half-swallowed murmurs. The logical part of your mind notes the connection, fibers, wood, proximity. The emotional part wants to reject it. You remember Mr. Price showing students how to burnish wood smooth enough to feel like silk. You remember Lydia's laugh when she spilled coffee on her apron, how she made even a mistake sound like music. Someone behind you whispers, "Guess that's that, huh?" But nothing feels that. It feels suspended, like the story's weight hasn't found its floor yet. A woman you recognize as Lydia's aunt holds a photo close to her chest, fingers trembling slightly. She doesn't cry. She just nods, as if agreeing with something unseen. The sheriff steps away, questions start flying, and you step back. The air tastes metallic again. You wander toward the edge of town, where the railroad tracks shimmer faintly in the noon sun. The same tracks Lydia used to cross on her way home. You follow them without meaning to. Boots crunching on gravel. The rhythm. Steady step. Breath. Memory. Halfway down the line, a faded sign leans against a fence. Cane, lumber, and mill, closed since 1989. The building itself is a skeleton of wood and rusted steel. Its windows are broken in a way that makes it look permanently surprised. You stand there, listening to the wind threading through the gaps. The smell of sawdust still clings, faint but stubborn, like an echo refusing to die. You step inside. Dust motes dance in slants of sunlight. Old saw blades hang on the far wall, their teeth dulled, their stories silent. You run your fingers along a workbench. Feel grooves where hands once pressed. There's a faint scorch mark shaped like a crescent moon, and for a moment, you imagine Lydia standing here, curious, watching someone carve her initials into a charm as a joke, or a gift, or something in between. You find yourself asking the air, did he mean to hurt her? And the air, ever neutral, doesn't answer. The historical truth that surfaces here is quieter, but undeniable. In 1996, the U.S. established the National DNA Index System, connecting local and federal databases for the first time. It changed how old crimes could breathe again, how ghosts might finally speak. You think of that, how technology became the new oracle, how machines remember what people forget. A shadow moves outside a figure. Brief, maybe just your reflection bending in the light. Still, your heart jumps. Every sound in abandoned places sounds intentional. You step out into the sunlight again, eyes adjusting. The sky is a perfect blue, almost cruel in its normalcy. From here, You can see the town sprawled below church spire, water tower, the diner's fading sign. Everything looks smaller, manageable, almost gentle. But you know how deep things go here. By evening, the community has begun its ritual. Candlelight, casseroles, speculation. Some want to forgive. Others want to dig deeper. Someone sets up a Facebook group named Justice for Lydia, while another posts old photos captioned, "Never forget." Digital echoes of the same grief, flickering screens instead of candles. At home, you sit by the window, the same one you left open last night. The air smells of cooling earth. You replay the day, each moment stacking like thin sheets of glass, transparent, fragile, refracting truth into too many colors. You open your notebook, the one where you keep half-finished thoughts, and write, "Memory rebuilds, justice rebuilds, maybe even faith rebuilds." You stare at the sentence until it blurs. Outside, the streetlights buzz back to life. Somewhere, a radio plays a soft song from another decade. The lyrics are about coming home, though no one in town feels entirely at home tonight. You think about that charm, about what it means when evidence surfaces years too late, about how people crave neat endings even when life refuses to give them. You think of Lydia, her red ribbon dancing in the wind, and of Mr. Price, his quiet voice teaching patience, his hands now cuffed. You wonder if truth is ever pure, or if it always comes mixed with a little bit of regret. There's a strange beauty in not knowing, in standing at the edge of the mystery, feeling it breathe beside you. The academics debate it, the detectives chase it. The storytellers, people like you, just try to hold it gently without crushing it. The night deepens again. Crickets tune their instruments. The world exhales. And you, still walking the line between past and present, finally understand. Sometimes, the only justice left is to remember kindly. Maybe someday, we'll know the truth. But for now, sleep well. Breathe in slowly. Let the story drift backward, like fog lifting from the valley after rain. Imagine the town of Ashgrove shrinking into distance, its rooftops glinting softly under a pale moon. The courthouse lights dim, one by one, until only the faint glow of the diner sign remains, a ghost of neon humming, somewhere between memory and silence. You're still walking, but your steps feel lighter now. The gravel no longer crunches, it sighs. The air cools on your skin, wrapping you in calm. Every noise fades to the rhythm of your own breath. The train tracks, the trees, the old mill, they all blur into one long, gentle horizon. Maybe you can still smell the rain, faint and sweet, carrying the scent of wood and rust and forgiveness. The night has grown kinder. It asks for nothing, explains nothing. It just lets you rest. Think of Lydia's ribbon not red anymore, but silver now, dissolving softly in moonlight. Think of Mr. Price, not as the villain or the victim, but as another name carved into the long grain of human imperfection. Think of Ashgrove breathing, the way a town does when it's trying to heal. The story quiets itself, and so do you. No questions left tonight, no answers, either. Just the comfort of knowing that even mysteries grow sleepy eventually. The stars come out, and the fan hums, and somewhere far away, the river runs smoother than before. You can rest now. The case will wait. The truth will wait. Let your heart beat slow to match the whisper of the wind against your window. Let the night hold you steady, safe, small. Maybe someday we'll know the truth. But for now, sleep well.